All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It is Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. It feels like it's been forever since it's just been a show like this with us two here, but a lot is going on. We are a few days away from the start of the legal tampering period on Monday. Free agency in the new league year then kicks off on Wednesday, and the action already starting to heat up with some, guys hit in the trade market, some guys getting straight up released, and a lot of names as this NFL player movement is starting. One of the best times of the year in the offseason, especially. So we are going to preview it all today. We're going to kind of go position by position, attack this thing. What do the Patriots need? What do they have? Who are potential targets? Veterans, not only available in free agency, but who could be some trade targets, DK Metcalf, the big ones that are kind of coming out over the past few days and that could come loose. So we will go by positions. We'll start at the top with quarterbacks. Obviously, Drake May on the roster, your day one unquestioned starter. Gets a little interesting behind him because Joe Milton is there. Do you trust him to be your backup right out of the gate, or do you want to add a veteran in free agency? Is there interest? I don't know if Jacoby Brissett would want to come back. Made it seem like at the end of the year he wouldn't, but there are some guys, lots of guys out there with Josh McDaniels ties on the open market, some former Patriots. But what are you kind of thinking as they look at this quarterback room? How do they kind of want to shape this thing out in free agency?
So they're going to need a camp arm or two. I wouldn't be surprised if not Monday, but down the road, there's another quarterback and think along the lines of like when they signed, throw it on a dime. Why am I blanking on his name?
Trace McSorley.
Thank you. I almost had to go through the whole song.
Who is a coach now at Penn State.
It's not going to be Trace McSorley, but something along the lines of that.
Well, do you remember, I think it was last year, Trace McSorley was thrown at the combine. Did you see who was doing it this year?
Matt Corral. So future
so maybe Matt
Miss
Corral's
offensive analyst Matt Corral. So I will say this, and this is why I wanted to bring up quarterbacks. Here's my take. I don't think they should trade Joe Milton unless somebody blows them away. If they do, I'm assuming it's like pending a. I've kind of had this take, but I'm just bringing it back, right? If you trade Joe Milton, you need a new backup quarterback. Okay, so if you trade Joe Milton for like a.
Hold on, quick question. Are you in the camp right now that you're comfortable with Joe Milton as your number two quarterback? Okay.
Yeah. Having another veteran in the room as like the third guy might make sense, but that's, down the road. If you are going to trade him, right? And let's say they trade him for a day 3 pick. Well, you need a new backup quarterback. Don't trade Joe Milton for a pick you then use to draft his replacement. That doesn't make any sense, right? So if they are thinking about trading Joe Milton, if they do think that's a possibility, I would like to see them sign a backup quarterback now. So it's not something, or like now, right? Within the first month. So it's not something they need to address in the draft. Who do they bring in? I don't know. That's a little tougher. You want somebody who's stylistically similar, ideally, to Drake May, the most stylistically similar quarterback available, at least among like the more notable names, is probably Jameis Winston. Now, he may go get a chance to do something a little more than that, but I would just, if they do trade Joe Milton, I don't want to just trade Joe Milton, draft another rookie, right? And I wouldn't trade him, but if they do trade him, I'd want them to get a veteran quarterback.
Yep. And you still need that camp arm, even if you hang on to him. So that's where, there are some connections, like Jarrett Stidham obviously was here. He went with Josh to Vegas. I think Josh Dobbs even had a year with Vrabel in Tennessee. So there are a lot of those kind of camp army guys who have been around, who can be a veteran. You can bring in Jimmy G is another one. I don't think either of us want Jimmy G, but
well, then you better have a real backup quarterback, because if you ever have to go to Jimmy G, you're gonna have to go to the next guy in about 10 minutes.
Then you're gonna need 4 quarterbacks, and we don't want 4 quarterbacks. But obviously not a spot on the top of their needs list here, but they do need to add to the room because they only have 2 guys in there right now, at least, and I don't think someone's going to really blow them away for Joe Milton. It doesn't seem like the trade market is to that point right now. So I would expect he's here, and then they can they can add just one of those kind of camp army guys to that room and go from there. But running backs, kind of the same deal. It's a little different though, because this is a spot where I feel like we want them to add and expect them to add, but in the draft, right? Because you have Ramondre Stevenson, you have Antonio Gibson. Those two guys are going to be here. They're under contract, but it's such a deep, talented running back class. They should take advantage of that, especially with some of the problems with Ramondre and the fumbling and everything. But the free agent market doesn't feel like a spot they need to go at this position. And there's really not that many options out there. Like Aaron Jones is the top guy, and he's 31, 32. And then like Rico Dowdle, who had a good year, but he's going to want to be in a bigger role. So this is a spot where you're probably not really looking at free agency, but more of the draft later this offseason.
Yeah, the only guy I might look at, and this is if they're down on Antonio Gibson, which I don't necessarily think they are. Like, he's not a lead back. He's more of a spell back. And that is J.K. Dobbins, who obviously is caught 30 passes last year, a little bit of pass catching experience. But no, with how good this draft is last year, they may very well assess things and realize they need a running back and not just like a throw on bottom of the roster guy, like a guy that's going to play for them. They may very well come to that realization. I kind of think they should come to that realization through the draft. Too much talent in the draft to address this in free agency.
Yep. So let me ask you this. Fullback, Patrick Ricard is the top guy. Are you interested in him? Or I know it's like Reggie Gillum on the Bills.
I mean,
those are kind of the top options, but
I'm going to say no because am I like take cornered into Robbie Utes at this point? Like,
yeah, you are. Okay, we're gonna corner you into that.
All right, and I am perfectly okay being cornered there, but Ricard would be fun. Ricard would be really fun if they want to get creative and kind of go outside the box. That, especially if they're going to sign Ronnie Stanley and Patrick McCarry, who we'll get to,
bring them all in.
Right? Like, yeah, I would. If they signed Ricard, I'd be into that. I could see that being like him being like a useful tool for him, but. Why sign Patrick Ricard? We could draft the next Patrick Ricard from Alabama. So
exactly. And we will see, Jakob Johnson's the other easy name, different players, styles. Well, I guess the only clue right now really we have to the fullback position is they signed, Giovanni Ricci earlier this offseason, who's like that hybrid. He's more of that Ricard. So if that's the type they're looking for, then we're going to talk, Utes and Ricard over a Jakob Johnson type at the fullback spot.
That's kind of where I'm at. If they're going to go traditional fullback, you sign Jakob Johnson, and it's 100% a no-brainer. Yeah. But if they want that guy to maybe be more involved in the passing game, play more as an on-the-line tight end at times, it's like a third tight end in the red zone. You want somebody. I'm not saying Johnson can't do that, but Ricard has experience doing that, right? He's done it. He's been in that role, so he just makes more sense.
Yep. All right. Those two kind of quick, kind of easy. Let's get to one of the good ones on the offense side of the football. Wide receivers. We've talked so much about the wide receiver free agent market. Not much there. T. Higgins tagged. They might trade Trey Hendrickson, it looks like now. So they really seem committed to paying T. Higgins too. Looks like
trade for a Bengal. That's all I'm saying for the Patriots offseason. I don't really care who. Trade for a Bengal. Bring Ted Karras back. Yeah, except Mike Gesicki.
But Chris Godwin could shake free. Devontae Adams got released. He's on the market. Seems though like he wants to go kind of the West Coast, and there are a couple teams that make sense. So then you're talking about those lower level tier guys that we've talked a lot about, like the Darius Slaytons, the Nick Westbrook, Akine, DeAndre Hopkins, some of those older guys, Stephon Diggs. So
yeah.
Probably looking at the trade market here. If you really want that guy, that alpha, that number one, and it's Brandon Ayuk, it's DK Metcalf, who officially requested a trade yesterday. I think it feels so long ago now, but it was yesterday. So we know that's your white whale, your guy, DK Metcalf. Is that your move right now? Are you pushing all your chips into DK Metcalf?
I think he's the best available. I would look into Ayuk. Who was the other one you said for the trade?
I think it was just Ayuk.
Okay, I'd look into Ayuk.
Is anyone else really rumored to be available?
No, that's why I thought you said a third.
It was Devontae Adams, but he got released.
Okay, so I'd look in Ayuk. I would still kind of be checking in Cincinnati. You never know what's going to happen there, right? It's easy to say you want to sign him. It's tougher when you put the money down. Adams sort of interests me. I'm generally out on wide receivers after 30, but he was so productive last year, given the terrible situations, plural, he was in. It's like, yeah, as a bridge, you could do a lot worse. You're not going to have to give up draft picks, but it is DK Metcalf. And I maybe got a little carried away yesterday on Catch 22 when the story broke. But like, look, I've been after this for a year, okay? I've been chasing this for a year, but
you got to defend your guy. You got to defend your guy.
And I still think he's the AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb thing. I admit I cringed a little bit watching that back. I caught up in the moment. The rest I stand by. I still think he's a good player. You look at what happened last year. I just think they didn't know how to use him. Ryan Grubb kind of admitted late in the year he didn't know how to use him. And look at what happened to Ryan Grubb. He got fired. So I still think he can be, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He's a big play threat. He's not going to be a chain mover. But if you can get, Jacoby Myers in a trade, or you go out and you draft a Xavier Restrepo or a Jalen Noel, right? I keep getting them mixed up. The small Noel. Is it Noel?
Yeah, it's Noel.
Okay. Learn something new. So yeah, you have, if you can go out and get like a chain mover, Metcalf as your big play threat, I just think like, is he stylistically perfect for Josh McDaniels' traditional offense? No. Is he stylistically perfect as a fit with Drake May? Yes. And I think Josh McDaniels can tailor things to take advantage of that. So, what would you give up? I know there was a report last night that a team was willing to give up a third. And then there was a report this morning that the Seahawks want a first. So you can want him for a third. The Seahawks can want a first. This is negotiations, right? You start here, I start here, and we try to get to here. Is it a second round pick? If so, I think the Patriots are in good shape. I would trade, I think the Ayuk trade last year, because that situation was very similar. That's a good starting spot. I don't know that the Seahawks are going to want Kendrick Bourne. They're rebuilding, but that was a second Bourne and a future fourth.
Yep.
What if we call it a current fourth and a future fourth instead of Bourne, right? Something like that, right? I would do that. Now, there was a report out of Green Bay. This was before that Metcalf officially requested the trade, that the Packers might be looking to give up 23 and a young receiver. Okay, so 38 isn't going to beat 23, but can you package 38 and the Judon pick and move up to 20, 21, 22? And now you've traded the second round pick and the Judon pick, but you're still getting Metcalf for a first, right? You can maneuver it. That's where maybe a Joe Milton trade comes in. You can't give him a young receiver, but maybe they have no long-term plan behind Geno Smith. They're willing to kick the tires there. I think that's all reasonable. I do. I'm not going to overextend. I'm not going to start with the first round offer, but if that's what the price is, if that report about the Packers offer is out there, I think the Patriots can be competitive with that. Look, Mike Vrabel talked about at the Combine how hard it is to get these top receivers unless you draft them. And pending something spectacular, they're not drafting that guy this year. And who knows if they'll be in position to draft him next year. This is what you have to do if you want this guy. It's not an infatuation with DK Metcalf. Kind of like, I think people misconstrued, Barth loves Will Campbell so much, even though his arms are short. No, it's an infatuation with getting Drake May's blindside protected and improving the offensive line. It's an infatuation with getting him a big play threat and somebody who will dictate coverage to get everybody else on the field more opportunities. I don't know that any realistic option this offseason does that better than DK Metcalf. If you want to argue Brandon Ayuk, we can have that argument. I am wary that he's coming off a torn ACL. I would hope they have a full check on the medicals in doing that. It shouldn't be something where Elliot Wolf talked about getting better intel, right? Health, injury recovery is certainly somewhere you do that. So if you want to argue Brandon Ayuk, we can have that conversation. If you want to argue T. Higgins, I guess we can have that conversation, but I'm still not considering T. Higgins available until he is. I don't think he's a guy you wait and see. If a guy like Metcalf's available, I'd rather have him than waiting on Higgins and potentially you get neither. So that's where I'm at. Like, they need that guy. They know they need that guy. They've tried aggressively to get that guy. I got carried away yesterday. To me, Metcalf and Ayuk are sort of the same caliber player. They win very differently. But I think they're going to have the same impact on the offense. He's definitely better than Calvin Ridley. Yeah. He's most definitely better than Calvin Ridley. So if you're going to go hard after those two guys, there's no reason not to do so after Metcalf now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I would honestly, I think just because of the styles, like I like Brandon Ayuk a little bit more as a receiver, and
Yeah.
he's going to be cheaper, probably money wise and asset wise, what you have to give, but it's because of that
Right.
knee injury. So
Why is he
you,
cheaper?
yeah, you do have to make sure that knee injury isn't going to be, an issue down the line. And, he's probably going to miss the start of this season, you would imagine, because what did he get hurt? Like week 7, week 8
I
of
think it was
last year?
earlier than that,
It
right?
was,
Wasn't it like week?
I don't
Was
know.
it
He
like?
was on one of my fantasy teams and he put up a couple duds that I remember. Like it was going way too long that I remember. So I think it
Although
was,
didn't he like lead the league in yards after catch or something? Taylor texted us this yesterday before he got hurt.
oh, like intermediate yards or something, which I
That's
was
what it was. Yeah.
surprised. I was
Oh no,
surprised about that, but
he played 7 games last year.
7 games, yeah. So,
But I
so they,
think he
so
got
he's,
hurt early in the 7th. Maybe that's why I'm thinking it
yeah.
was so early.
So he's probably gonna miss the start of this season, right? Because that was right about when Kendrick Bourne got hurt
I was
2
about to
years
say
ago.
Bourne got hurt Halloween or the week of Halloween. I remember that. And Ayuk got hurt October 20th. So
There you go.
he's about a
Yeah,
week
and
behind or
Bourne
a week
came
ahead.
back. It was he came back week 5, but then he said like it took him really a month to get back
Yeah.
to full steam ahead. So yeah, you're talking like week 8, week 9, then you're gonna get the full Brandon Ayuk, what you hope is the full Brandon Ayuk off the knee injury. But I like him more as a receiver and just the price, I think. But I'm not a huge like DK Metcalf fan, but I think you do kind of have to look at this where okay, if you want this guy, like you can't be that picky right now when you're the Patriots, and this is going to be one of the best options available. So I'm not giving up a first, anything with especially with the number 4 overall pick. I'm not interested in that. But if you do want to maneuver some of those day 2 picks around, or if they're interested in, a Joe Milton as part of a package, or one of your rookie receivers, maybe, or a Kendrick Bourne or something, like if you can put a package together that they like, I think you kind of, and that's the best receiver you can get. I think you kind of have to do that if you're the Patriots. Even though, is he the ideal perfect wide receiver? Probably not, but like you need an upgrade, and this is a clear cut upgrade over anything you've had for what, 6-7 years almost. Like
Any of these guys, Metcalf, Ayuk, Adams, Higgins. How far down this list do we want to go before it's their best receiver since Edelman? Godwin.
Yeah.
Diggs has the ACL asterisk like Ayuk does, but if Hopkins would be. Where are you at with Amari Cooper? Like, how
I'm
much should
good.
we look into that? Like, obviously, he's not that top guy, but if we're gonna do, like, is 2021 Kendrick Bourne better than what you would expect to get from Amari Cooper?
At this stage, probably. I think if you're Brandon and Cooper, you're kind of just selling like the veteran in the room type of thing, right? Like you still need
Yeah.
that veteran in the room. Like if you strike out on some of those other guys, but I'll give him some leeway that he got traded mid-season, but he just looked kind of cooked in Buffalo
Yeah.
and really Cleveland. You could say he was dealing with Deshaun before in Cleveland too, but he just did not look like he had it this year. But maybe
No.
he would be your top receiver and whatever, but maybe he has something else left in the tank. But I don't think I would love Amari Cooper.
I was a big Amari Cooper fan back in the day. I really was. Would
Yeah.
have loved to see him here when he was like cooking in Dallas, right? So I just pulled up his stats because I was curious. Do you know how long Amari Cooper's been in the league? I didn't even realize this. Amari Cooper played
10
4
years?
seasons, 10 years, but he played 4 seasons for the Oakland Raiders.
Wow. Okay.
Like, we were doing this on Zolak and Bertrand today.
Did he go from Oakland to Dallas? Is that how it worked? Or
Yeah.
did he get a Las Vegas year in there?
No, Oakland to Dallas. And then Bosa played for the San Diego Chargers his rookie year, which I totally forgot about. We're getting old, man. Totally forgot about
Was that when they played the Patriots in the 2018 divisional, and it was the famous Bosa mic'd up where he's like, "Stop throwing the ball so damn fast, Tom."
I'm pretty sure they were LA at that point.
They
I
were
think they
LA
moved
at
in
that time?
17. Yeah, that was their second
Okay.
season in LA.
So they were LA then. So damn, he has been around a while.
They were LA, but they were still playing in that remember they played in that like 20,000 person soccer stadium?
Yeah, the different field.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they were still playing there, but they were in LA.
That makes sense. So with this receiver conversation, I see some people in the chat talking about this. And Mike brings it up. New England isn't an attractive destination. I'm not getting my hopes up ever again. Fair. Do you think they can pitch one of these guys? Because this is, looking at DK, this is the Ayuk situation from last year where he kind of has say because he needs a new contract, right? Like you can say
Right.
trade me to New England, but I don't want to sign an extension there. Like he said, he had that clip that was going around again. Like, I don't want to live in Massachusetts, which, if you throw him $30 million, maybe he feels a little bit differently about that. But do you think they can, with Drake May and Mike Vrabel, can they pitch this thing to get one of these guys to say, okay, I'll sign off on a deal and I'll sign off on an extension to come to New England and play here?
They can pitch it. It's not a guarantee, but I'll give you two reasons why they can pitch it. One, Ayuk last year, I don't know, maybe he was lying, but he reportedly said this, I think it was from Rossini, it was from somebody at the Athletic. The main reason he didn't come to the Patriots was they had uncertainty at the quarterback position, which makes sense. That shouldn't be an issue this year, and Elliott Wolf said Drake May was going to be a big part of the pitch. Secondly, and most importantly, and I wrote about this on 985thesportshub.com talking about my takeaways from DK Metcalf. They have $127 million in cap space. Make him an offer he can't refuse, right? Oh, I don't want to live in Massachusetts. I can't give you 35, 36 million reasons why you wouldn't want to. For just 3 years, it's all we're asking. You don't have to move here forever. You don't even have to register to vote here, right? 3 years, July to hopefully mid-February. Summer, you can go, spring, summer, go wherever you want, do whatever you want. It's nice here in the summer.
Training camp season, it's nice.
Make it incredibly difficult for him to say no. And look, if these guys take less money to go elsewhere, I don't know, you throw your hands up and maybe that prevents it. And some guys might do that. But for all the bluster about players saying they, I don't want to play in Boston or the facilities or blah, 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 this and that, in pro sports, 9 times out of 10, especially when a guy's going to a new team, it's one thing if he resigns where he is, but if a guy's going to a new team, the team that offers the most money gets the player, period, full stop. The Patriots can be the team that offers the most money on any player they want. They got to spend it on the right players, but on any player they want. Does that mean they might have to overpay for some players? Yeah, but that's kind of what you have to do when you've won back-to-back 4-win seasons, as we like to say at the Sports Hub, the suck tax, right? You might have to pay the suck tax. What's the alternative? Continuing to suck? Yeah, pay the suck tax. And so in that sense, you can get guys to come here because you can make it financially worth their while to come here. If they don't do that, nobody's coming here for a discount. Well, I want to play I want to stand where Tom Brady once stood. That's not going to do anything. But if you offer them the most money, usually that's how you learn. That's how you get guys in free agency. Again, 9 times out of 10, that works. But if they don't offer the most money, it's not going to matter.
What Mike Vrabel say? The only green they care about is cash.
Showing them the practice field. Look how nice these grass fields
are.
Not
natural grass fields or something. Maybe you could show them a nice image of that new facility that's getting built or something, and then you can show them the $35 million there. So we'll see what happens. I still feel like, because I think they said he might want to go to a contender to DK, and the Chargers are lurking. That's a team where it's just a plug and play fit. It would seem opposite of Lad McConkey out there, and they're a contender.
Say this: the sell the DK Metcalf. You sign Ronnie Stanley, right? You sign a top defensive player. Okay, DK, you're coming in.
You're the guy. You're the last piece.
Right. You're coming in to help put us over the top. That's going to be part of the pitch. And, are they going to contend with the Ravens and the Chiefs right away? No, but it's 3-year deal, right? Year 1, come here and you front load the contract. Year 1, help us get it going. And then in year 2, right, give us 2 off seasons. Coming out of next off season, we believe we can be in a place where you're essentially positioning yourselves to be the Commanders. That's essentially what you're doing. Now, that doesn't mean anything if you're not offering them the most money, but that would be, if you have a quarterback, you can, to an extent, sell the contender thing. If he's blah, 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 Chiefs and Eagles, blah, 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 all right, you can't do anything. But you can sell them a little bit on Drake May being the guy that's going to get them there.
Definitely. Definitely. So that's the receivers. I think I still prefer Ayuk right now, a little bit over DK. But again, like it's tough to really be picky when you're looking at this if you want the guy this year, because
I just
there's only
I
so many guys out there, and you got to get one of them in somehow,
I
some way.
can't watch them add another free agent receiver that we find out isn't 100% healthy and is just looks out of place out there. And in 2 years, he's gone. And I mean, haven't we watched that enough?
Yeah, we can't do another Juju in our lives right
That
now.
would be one I would, and they can do this. That would be one I would hope before the trade, their doctors check them out, right?
Yep.
If you're going to do that, at least get your own physical.
Yep.
And I
All
would
right.
say the same for like Stephon Diggs or some of these other guys in Fridgie, or even Joey Bosa, who played a lot last year, but is always kind of hurt.
Yep. Someone just asked, wrap up receivers here. Why would
Yeah.
Ayuk get traded? He just got paid. Feels like John Lynch was literally asked kind of this at the combine, and he didn't say no. And he mentioned they want to reset their financial books and they want to get younger. So, they just drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round last year. They're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. Sounds like George Kittle might need a new contract. So they're kind of going through this where, they had so many good players. Now they're going to have to make some tough decisions. And I think that whole Ayuk thing, how it went down last year, kind of ruffled some feathers, Ron, in that organization too. So I think you add all that up, and now they're looking at maybe a trade here. And his contract isn't even that bad for them to trade. Like it's not that big of a dead cap hit, and then it saves them a lot of money the next 2 years. So that's why it's weird. You just signed this big 4-year extension, and now he's getting traded after 7 games because he tears his knee up, which probably has something to do with it as well. But that is why we're doing all this Brandon Ayuk stuff all over again. But sticking with pass catchers, just probably another quick one here. Not a great tight end market? Are you just looking at maybe re-signing Austin Hooper, or I mean, I think like the top option is Juwan Johnson from the Saints, or we said Mike Gesicki, Conklin, Zach Ertz, just more of these veterans. Kind of feels like the running back group where really good draft class with the rookies here. Let's just go maybe a small veteran, Austin Hooper, but let's just go pick a guy in the draft and get some youth into that room.
If they know they're not going to take a tight end super high, like if they think that, Tyler Warren's in play, or even, maybe Mason Taylor on day 2, you can just, re-sign Austin Hooper, be done with that. If not, you go above it. I wouldn't hate Zach Ertz as that second tight end. I think he'd be a good veteran, good guy to have in the room, gives you some stability on offense. I think he's going back to Washington, so I don't think it'll matter. But if they re-sign Hooper and then we're going to tap into this draft class, like I think that's a solid plan at tight end for this offseason. I don't think they need to go super over the top here, especially with who's available in free agency. Like Juwan Johnson, I know I just said like they might need to overpay some guys to get him, and I stand by that, and they should overpay some guys to get him, and I stand by that. Juwan Johnson's top tight end on the market. He's already going to get overpaid anyway. And then what you're putting on top of that, like I just think chasing Juwan Johnson when they have all these other needs is probably not the best use of their resources. Good player, but not where their focus needs to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Joe commented he's good. I like Juwan Johnson. I thought he's been underrated and kind of underused in New Orleans the past few years, but he's the best tight end. He's going to get a contract, probably too much that he's valued, and that a team like New England should be willing to give him. So just bring Austin Hooper back. He liked the area. He was big for Drake May last year. He's played under Mike Vrabel. He's played under Josh McDaniels. So there's plenty of familiarity there. Feels like an easy, just kind of bring him back into the mold, and then get one of those younger guys in the draft.
Forget about this too. Any interest in Evan Ingram?
I don't think so. Isn't he? He's kind of like John-y, right? Or like that would be. I don't know.
I don't think he's as much of a scheme touch guy. He's more like just a straight up hybrid tight end wide receiver versus like that H-back thing.
Yeah.
But he's going to be 31. He's coming off a down year. I just don't think in a weak class with what you have in the draft. I like Evan Ingram as a player. I do. Also, like if they're going to move on from Austin Hooper, I'd like them to get somebody who's a little bit of better blocker, which is not Ingram. So
Pharaoh Brown, bring Pharaoh Brown back.
I would be interested in a Pharaoh Brown reunion. I wouldn't hate that. I feel like he's like a Mike Vrabel kind of player too.
Definitely. Yeah, get like their get like another Dwayne Allen type in here or something like that, right? And then maybe a
Would they
more
throw Dwayne Allen 8 passes in 3 years or
which was
something?
so weird because he came here as like a decent receiving
He was
or
not a bad receiving
like
tight end. He caught so
like
his last year in
his
Indy,
production was never bad at Indy, and then they're just like, we're never throwing you the football like ever, which was
so as a
so
rookie, he
random.
had 45 catches for 520 yards.
Yeah,
And
it
then
was.
his last year in Indy, he caught 35 for 406. And then he caught a combined 13 passes in 2 years in New England. He had 26 targets. It was super weird. It was like you can throw him the ball. And he had Gronk getting all this attention on the other side. So it was like you definitely leak him out there. And they were just like, nope, you're just basically a tackle at this point.
He was good at it though. Credit to him. He was good at it, but
One more. I'm still in on Kyle Pitts for a day 3 pick. Nothing more than that. But
you still
there's a
believe?
little part of me that like a change of scenery. I don't know that he'll ever be the player we thought he was going to be in the draft, but a change of scenery maybe gets him to being like a solid second tight end, low level number 1 tight end.
I'll
But I think he
never
needs a change of scenery.
I'll never give up on Kyle
I
Pitts.
will never fully give up on Kyle Pitts,
I
even
will
though
never.
he screwed Michael Penix last year, dropping passes in the end zone.
Yeah. The other
That I
kind of
was torn.
popular trade target is Michael Mayer that Joe brings up, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, second round pick, like he hasn't produced to that. And now they have Brock Bowers, kind of a buy low, but it seemed like, and there were some articles and quotes where he was one of the guys who didn't necessarily love the Josh McDaniels experience in Vegas. So I don't know how willing he would be to come here and how willing they would be to go out and bring him into this. So I don't think Michael Mayer is going to be a fit there with teaming back up with Josh.
I'm with you there.
Yep. But probably not major action in that tight end room. Hopefully they do add one at some point in the draft. But another big one on the offensive line, specifically offensive tackle, Ronnie Stanley did not get tagged. Feels like he might get out there to the open market, and Baltimore maybe. It feels like it could be one of those old Patriots situations where it's like, okay, go see what you're worth and come back to us. And I don't know if they're going to be able to match what the Patriots might be able to throw at Ronnie Stanley. So is that your move? Are you throwing as much money as it takes for Ronnie Stanley to say yes if he gets onto the open market on day one there?
He's at top of my board. He completely changes the outlook of the offseason if they can sign him. It opens things up for the rest of free agency. It opens things up in the draft. They have a lot of needs, right? Adding a coverage dictating receiver, pass rusher, another corner, yada, yada, yada. They can fix more than one hole, but they're not going to fix every hole this offseason. And I understand there's some things that are going to go unaddressed. And I'm prepared for that. And I'm okay with that, right? All right. You upgraded the trenches, but you didn't get the receiver. All right. You got the receiver, but maybe the defense didn't get as much attention as it needed. I'm realistic in that regard. The one non-negotiable is left tackle. You have to get Drake May's blind side definitively protected. And I don't mean we're going to have 3 guys, right? We're going to have Dan Moore, and we're going to have a day 2 pick. We're going to have Darian Lowe, and they're all competing for the job. No. Day 1, OTAs, that is the starting left tackle. We all know it. It shouldn't even need to be said. That's how clear it should be.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I've never done that before.
If they walk out on the field and we don't have to look, okay, who's that left tackle today?
Right. Who said that? Oh, did you see so-and-so moved over? Right. So to me, there's only 2 guys in this available this offseason period, draft and free agency, that do that. Ronnie Stanley does it emphatically. And then I think Cam Robinson, I don't love him as a long-term solution, but if it's Cam Robinson to get you through the year and we're going to do first-round tackles again next year, sure. Okay, it's not the best way to do it, but it's done. Dan Moore, no. Tyron Smith, no. I don't think Tyron Smith would come here, but no. Alaric Jackson's off the market. I don't think Jedrick Wills is an answer. There were some injury issues and there was some locker room issues with him, and I don't think he's that guy.
If anyone would know with him, it would be Vrabel, though. He was with Cleveland last year. So
yeah, didn't it end poorly for Wills last year in Cleveland?
I believe so, yeah.
So there you go. So yeah, if they sign Ronnie Stanley, everything else becomes so I guess easier isn't the word, but like you have so much more flexibility and you can get creative and you can really go and kind of pick and choose where you want to spend your assets. The one position I think they're handcuffed into is left tackle. That has to be addressed. There's not a ton of options to address it. Beetle called Ronnie Stanley big sexy earlier. Like I'm with them. Like that's the guy. I know there's all this buzz that Milton Williams is at the top of their list, and I'm not anti Milton Williams. I'm not. Solid player. Maybe wouldn't be as high as him on them, but I'm not against them signing him. But the first call, frankly, and then the second call to follow up should be made to Ronnie Stanley. He is the most important free agent the Patriots could sign this offseason.
I agree. And it's kind of like that receiver conversation where is he absolutely perfect? Like he's going to be 31. There's the injury history. No, but you can't be picky. And this is a real left tackle. He had a really good year this past year with Baltimore. Like you have to go out there and do everything you can in your power to get him if he's available. So I don't know. Mike Reese had it. They did like this armchair GM thing for ESPN, and he gave him 4 years. I think it was 100 million. I forget how much guaranteed he gave him, but like, are you going that much to get Ronnie Stanley? PFF has him right here. Takes. PFF has him 2 years, 40 million. So I'm guessing if you're the Patriots, you're going to need to do more than 2 years, 40 million, but
it's going to be
3 for 75 or something in that range. Like,
well, look, it's going to be probably in the 25 million a year range, which I would certainly do. You know, a 4-year, $100 million deal, 75 million of that's going to be in the first 3 years. 60 of it's probably going to be in the first.
How it was structured and that type of stuff,
but that's going to be a real, like, there's no real 4-year deals in the NFL anymore, right? We all know that, and yeah, he's a little bit older. Tackles are playing later in they're playing a little longer right now, so that's good. But I would, I don't know. I'd probably go up. You know, if it's going to be 4 years, probably in that $22-23 million range per year. And that's overall. I don't know what the guarantees would be. They'd probably be significant, but if you're going to start going up to 4 years, I got my wires crossed. Yeah, I'd go over 20 a year for him. And if I have to put a 4th year on and it's like a dummy year, Drake May's contract, including the 5th year option, Drake May's contract expires in after the 2029 season. So we're talking spring 2030. As long as he's off the books by then, I'm good.
Which he probably will be. He could be retired. He could be retired by then.
So. Right. As long as he's off the books by then, I'm good. So if you got to, the cap can be maneuvered. If you got to move numbers around and put dummy years on there, front load it, back load it, whatever, you can make it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the $20 to $25 million range, you got to go to 26, 27, sure.
Yeah. This is the guy you got to get if he's out there, because it does change everything, how you go about the rest of the offseason. Are you a little worried that there's this Chiefs talk now starting to get involved now that they moved Joe Thuney and they're starting to redo their offensive line? Like,
yes and no. I mean, part of me, yes, but they're not going to get to 127 million, right? What's their cap number now? Let's see.
They're still. I'm on OTC right now. They're still in the red by almost 3 million. So they still have some.
Does that include Thuney?
I would imagine. I figured OTC would be pretty updated, but
well, let's just see who is their biggest.
No, he's not on their. No, they have their dead money. They have a 11 million dead cap for Joe Thuney, and they're still 3 under. So,
okay, so let's say hypothetically, I'm looking at it here. Their biggest cap savings the move they could make for the biggest cap savings would be cutting Trey Smith, which would give him 23.5, and they were what, 3 under?
Yeah.
So they're now at 20. So even if they cut Trey Smith and put all the money they get back on the table, the Patriots should still be able to top that by multiple millions of dollars. Unless, maybe they maneuver the cap, maybe they cut some checks, but they don't, even as much as the cap can be maneuvered, they don't have a ton of room to maneuver. The next guy, honestly, probably would have helped him out if Travis Kelce retired.
Yeah.
If they cut and they get this with the release Travis Kelce, they'd get another 17 million. But I don't, if the Patriots want him, they can put 25, 26 a year on the table. The Chiefs, without getting insanely creative, can't do that.
They can restructure Mahomes and get 40. I don't know how that restructure then impacts them down the line, but
I mean,
it's
where's
gonna
Clark
be
Hunt at, right?
yeah, seriously, you shipping Joe Tooney out of there,
Or
but
whoever it is. Yeah, like you have to eat. You open up a lot of cap space, but there's a real money. You essentially have to buy that cap space as the owner.
yeah.
You've won 3 Super Bowls. Are you really willing to put $40 million down on the table to get a 31-year-old tackle?
So let's just say maybe Stanley ends up with the Chiefs or goes back to the Ravens.
Yeah, I think
Robinson's your second
going
choice.
back to the Ravens, I think is realistic. Like that's one
Yeah,
where maybe he takes a little less to stay there. Familiar team, doesn't have to move, has a chance to win. Like if he goes back to the Ravens, all right, like it is what it is. On the open market, the Patriots should not get outbid.
and then if he goes back to the Baltimore, are you going pivoting to Cam Robinson, who has the Doug Marrone connection from their time in Jacksonville? You said I'm not a big Dan Moore fan. I'm good with him from Pittsburgh. So
Yeah.
Robinson's really your top option remaining there before you get into some of those older guys. Are you good with Robinson?
Yeah, I'm not as ecstatic about Stanley. Look, I'd still put a lot of money on the table because of how steep the drop off is afterwards, right? If they don't walk out of this with Stanley or Robinson, they didn't have a good free agency. Whatever else they do, they could add Metcalf, and that's coming from me. And they still didn't have. I mean, they did okay, but they didn't do it. They didn't check off the number one box they needed to check off, which is getting a starting left tackle.
Yeah. I don't love Robinson, definitely not as much as Stanley, but he was good with Jacksonville and then he got traded and he just kind of like completely fell off. So maybe that was something midseason with the trade, just impacted his
Yeah,
game. So get him back with Doug Marrone and maybe he's better than he's another one of these. He's just better than what you got, right? And he'll help you. We'll
right.
get to go to practice next year and be like, okay, Cam Robinson, it's not going to be perfect, but he's going to be our left tackle and it's going to be an improvement. I still like the idea another vet like Morgan Moses, just bring him in on the right side, just a vet with Caden Wallace to help solidify that spot. Do you like that idea? Or even looking on the interior, we heard center could be a sneaky need for them. Trey Smith's off the market. He would have been the top left guard. Mekhi Becton could be available. I still really love Patrick McCarry, just that versatility, really at all 5 spots he could give you. I think that would make a ton of sense. So beyond left tackle, is there anything you're looking at along this offensive line to kind of help shore that room up?
So if they're worried about David Andrews, was that Drew Dahlman report stood out to me, right? That they're a landing spot for him. Like, yeah, get a veteran center. If you don't think David Andrews is going to be able to play this year, they don't have a proven center on the roster, and you need that. It's not a bad draft for centers. My guy Jared Wilson tore it up at the combine.
Yeah.
But I
Any
don't
of
know
those
that he's like
interior Georgia guys, sign me up for them.
yeah, but
They're
like I don't
all
know that he's not necessarily a plug and play guy. So if you need a center, sign a center. I wouldn't hate them getting. I know Layden Robinson and City So and Cole Strange and like they're all options, but just get a guy that you know is the guy. Tevin Jenkins is an interesting one to me. I remember I really liked him coming out a couple of years ago. And Makari's interesting to me. Kevin Zeitler too. That's a guy who's a little bit older, but he's been in that winning culture, and you're going to get some of that from him. And I think he still has something left in the tank, especially if he's playing next to a guy like Ronnie Stanley. I think that helps. So there's a couple guards out there I wouldn't mind. I've seen some people in the chat talking about Mekhi Becton. The problem is I think he's really only a right guard. And we saw what happens when you move Michael Onwenu outside to right tackle. He's not the same player. Love the idea in theory. I just don't know. I like Becton as a player, not enough to move things around the amount you need to move things around to make him a realistic signing.
Yeah, I think he's going to go back to Philly too in
I
the
think
in the
so too.
first
Yeah.
place. But I wonder if there is maybe this year's Mekhi Becton out there somewhere. Which I don't know. Like, is Evan Neal a free agent or is he next year? Like one of those guys who you could try to kind of move around and try to revitalize their career. But
Oddly
I'm
enough,
just
I think that guy's in the draft. I think you're going to see teams try that with guys like Anthony Belton.
that's true. Yeah,
Maybe
I can
Wills.
definitely see that.
Maybe Wills kicks inside.
Wills, okay,
I could see that.
yeah. Or would Conklin move inside? That's more of a trade target if they wanted to get Conklin.
Yeah, I think Conklin's good
He,
enough at tackle that he can stay at
yeah,
tackle.
maybe that's a veteran trade option on the right side if they want to go that route. Vrabel was with him in Tennessee and then in
Yeah.
Cleveland. So, yeah, but those other spots, I just give me Patrick McCarry just because he can do anything you need him to do. If you need him at left guard, if you need him at even tackle in a pinch, like he will solidify all those spots. So I think that would be a really good signing. But that is the offensive side of the football. Let's jump over to defense. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, where you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And we know the football season is over, but the sports roll on. Celtics and basketball in full swing. How about Peyton Pritchard and Derek White last night? I hope you took more on their points or more on 3-pointers made, because that was an easy cash. Hockey is in full force. The Bruins, they actually just tied it 1-1 in Carolina. That's a surprise. We need them to lose, but who knows who's going to be on their team at this time tomorrow. But if Brad Marchand's still here, which kind of looks like he's not at this point, you can take, and he's healthy, you can take him when he's back on the ice more than shots on goal. Or, of course, the easiest one, David Pastrnak, more goals, more assists, more points, anything, because they can only score when David Pasternak's on the ice. Let's see who just scored. It was probably, excuse me, it was probably David Pastrnak here. Oh, no, it was Geeky. And Pastrnak did not get an assist, but he was probably on the ice. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS, again, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, to the defensive side of the football. Back to the trenches, staying in the trenches, defensive line. We've talked a lot about Milton Williams. Seems like he is on the top of their board as an interior lineman. They also need some edge guys. There's not a lot of edge guys available, but maybe some interesting rotational guys. Who are you eyeing on the defensive line here in free agency?
Well, it sounds like they're not in on are we doing just line or like edge rushers too?
You can do edge rushers too.
We can just do interior defense. Actually, it's probably going to be easier.
All right, break them up. Yeah, go interior.
Yeah. Then. So I got to remember, because a couple of these guys resigned, right? Odigi Zua resigned or got tagged or something, right?
No, he resigned. So he was 4 years, $80 million. So that could set kind of the Milton Williams market, because they had very similar box score stats and analytics stats next year. So that's probably what you're looking at for Milton Williams, 4 years, $80 million.
And then did Onwuzurike resign too?
I do not believe so.
Okay. There's the connection with him with Terrell Williams, right, from Detroit.
Yep.
So he's potentially a fit. He could make some sense. Milton Williams obviously is in play, getting that attacking defensive tackle, especially if they're not sure where they're at with Christian Barmore. Getting a player like that. I would also like to see them kind of get a more stout, run defender, a guy who's going to help them in the middle on early downs. And there's a couple guys available who fit that mold this off season. I'm trying to remember, what's their connection with Tier Tart again? Don't they have one? I thought there was one, but
was it one of their coaches?
Yeah, it must have been. Tier Tart, Poona Ford, guys like that. Just a big body to put in the middle, I think, would really help them out at this point.
Let me see. Tier Tart. Has he been with the Chargers his whole career?
Maybe I'm imagining this. I just thought I saw something the other day that there's a connection there. I think he was with the he was with the Titans. He was the Titans 2020, 2023.
Well, there you go. That's an easy connection. Yeah. 2020. Yeah. Okay. So that's an easy connection along the defensive line. Are you in the Milton Williams camp to just throw a big old bag at him, or?
He wouldn't be at the top of my list. Like I don't put him in, I don't hold him in the same regard I hold Ronnie Stanley. Right. But they do need like that role of that penetrating defensive tackle is very important in this defense. And I think him playing next to Barmore would be the ideal, and that would be great. Kind of the way he played next to Jalen Carter in Philly, right? But
good.
You also, like, if Barmore's not going to be back, you got to have a guy ready to go to kind of lead that role. And I don't know that you're going to add anybody better this offseason than Milton Williams. The other option would be Mason Graham. Like one of those two guys next to Barmore or ready to step in for Barmore. That's going to be big for their defense. So I understand why they're in on Milton Williams. I don't hate it. I think left tackle should be more of a priority, but so Ronnie Stanley's obviously at the top of my list for free agents, not trade targets, just free agents. Milton Williams is 2 or 3. Like he's up there. I am really, we'll get to safety. I am super into the Javon Holland thing and making that work, but that's sort of a luxury need. And I don't know that they really have luxury needs. They need talent where they can get talent. But Milton Williams is one of the better players available on the market. And he fills a role that they absolutely certainly need filled. And he's probably the best player, especially with Odigizua going back to Dallas to fill that role. Role. So, he makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, I'm a big Milton Williams fan. And again, I've talked about this a few times. Like, I get the concern with really all of these Eagles defenders, and Zach Bond got re-signed. So he was maybe one of the more concerning ones at that second level. But what's it going to look like when he's not next to Jalen Carter and he's not on this Philly defense, feasting on one-on-ones and all the time? But he's 26 years old. He's gotten better each and every year. His pass rush win rate was 4th among all defensive tackles this year. So he had a really good playoff run. He's a guy with Super Bowl championship experience now, which they're quickly dwindling off this Patriots roster. Like, there's not many of those guys. And I think that's important to have as you're kind of resetting this culture. So I'm a big Milton Williams fan. I think, the arrow's still pointed up with him. You get him with Terrell Williams, who we heard wants to be aggressive. That's how he coaches these defensive linemen. And especially if he's next to Christian Barmore, or, we're probably going to draft an interior defensive lineman because the draft is so strong, or maybe you double up and you go get Onzarike in free agency as well. Like, I think Milton Williams is a really good fit and a really good player who's only going to continue to get better. So I'm ready for him Monday. Is it 12 or 4? It's 12, right?
12 on Monday, 4 on Wednesday.
12. I'm ready. 12:01. I'm ready to see the Schefter or Rap Sheet Milton Williams tweet to the Patriots. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be that quick because I think like Carolina and probably a few other teams are hovering and lurking. But I'm ready for a big Milton Williams deal. I think that's worthwhile. And
well, the league has also kind of leaned on teams to be like, hey, can you at least pretend?
Yeah,
that you talked it over for a little bit. So call 1 o'clock.
Yeah. But if maybe he gets a big deal somewhere else, Onzarike is definitely number 2 on my like interior guys, because he was really good career year too with Terrell Williams. He was top 15 in win rate and pressures on the defensive tackle position. So the arrow's pointed up for him as well. So I would take both, because I think he could be a pretty good value deal on Onzarike. So I would take both if they can swing that, but at least one of them. And I think they like Williams a little bit more there at the top. But what about edge? Because that's another big spot. Doesn't feel like they're as high on Josh Sweat compared to like a Milton Williams, but maybe they look at that secondary market, like Aziz a larger. How do you say it? Aziz
Ojulari,
Odiabo from Indianapolis. Joey Bosa got released last night, who has that Vrabel connection from Ohio State. Are you eyeing any of those guys? As this is probably going to be your secondary rusher, ideally, but any of those guys you like?
Yeah, there's some good names here. And like you said, it's the secondary rusher. Unless, where are you at with Khalil Mack? Because I kind of been writing him off because I'm like, the Patriots aren't going to bring in a 35-year-old to rush the passer. But if they're going to go after Bosa, and Bosa's 29, but Bosa also has a pretty significant injury history. Mack is just out there on the field every year, all the time.
At a high level.
Right. So, like, I'm kind of a little more open to the idea of Khalil Mack now than maybe I was. And I'll just talk about a great veteran to get in the room. But besides him, a lot of the guys on the secondary market, you get that top pass rusher next year. Is it Odebayo from the Colts?
Yeah. Who he might get paid like a number 1, honestly.
So PFF projects him at 66 over 4. He's going to give you, for this new scheme, that more rushing, aggressive defensive end. Putting him with a stand-up linebacker behind him would be a lot of fun. Chase Young, I still think maybe tapping into Chase Young in this system He's a fit. He could be a fun addition. Again, as the secondary guy, you're not building your pass rush around him. You talked about Bosa. If Bosa clears medically, I kind of feel the same way about him as I do about Ayuk. If you're signing Bosa because we're getting Joey Bosa, and first of all, I think he's going to San Francisco, so none of this matters.
Yeah.
But if it's like, we checked him out, he's healthy, we're getting Joey Bosa, we're getting an impact pass rusher, yeah, go for it. If the thought process is, well, nobody's really offering him, it's because he's hurt, so we can get him as a distressed asset and see how it works. Like, no, at that point, they've done that enough. That's been the approach. No, I'm out on that. The other guy's Harold Landry. Like, I think Harold Landry should be in play. I think he'd make sense. If you pair Landry with one of those more defensive end type edge guys, like in Odebayo or whatever from the Colts, like that feels like a solid plan to me. So yeah. I'm not rolling that. Like, Harold Landry might be their big move there. And for what's available this offseason, that might have to be what it is. Landry and Chase Young, you put those two together, that, you're going to have a little bit of spark there. They do still have Anthony Jennings, so I'm not super worried about them getting like that more stout front side run stopping, edge setting, defender. It's more about, can you get the guy on the back end who's going to pin his ears back and go after the quarterback?
Yeah, especially if you have ideally Milton Williams and Christian Barmore in the interior. Right now, you just need kind of that guy to clean it up. So I like Harold Landry. I'm with you. Like, if Khalil Mack is interested in coming here, I would give him 1 or 2 years, and I would imagine at this point he probably wants to stay with a contender, though. But maybe if he's out there. The big one today, though, would you get involved in the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes?
Yes, thank you. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I trade for a Bengal. I don't really care which one. Trade one of those three. I mean, it's not going to be Chase, but like, my guess, second and a third. I don't know that they're going to get a first for him just because he's over 30 and he needs a contract. It's a little bit less of an impact position than receiver, but it is still an impact position. I don't know, Brian. Am I overreaching here? Second and maybe that's a future third. You do have 2/3.
I was thinking about this. Like, I started with a second, and then I'm like, he is 30, but he's played at such a high level, and he's kind of like Khalil Mack. Like, he never comes off the field. Like, could they get a second, or would but he has he'll need a new contract, so would that bump him down to a third? Like, I don't know where I kind of settled with that. So we need Trags back. We got to work out another trade with Trags. Can we do a third in Devon Godshaw? He wanted Godshaw.
Trags is going to say they're going to re-sign him because Trags has believed the whole, and Trags generally pretty good at this stuff. So maybe he goes back, and maybe this is another one of those ploys where I'm going to request a trade so that I can go out and gauge my market and get leverage in these negotiations, right? I just think you're going to have to give up a second round pick because that's generally what did Matt go for when he got traded the second time? I think he went for a second, right?
I am not sure.
And he was older. I'm going to have to look, but I think maybe a second and third is rich, right? How many teams are you outbidding? I don't know that that's where you start with the second and third. You probably start with a second and like a later day.
Yeah, it was Mac and a sixth. Mac and a future 6 for a second.
Yeah. So. Okay. So maybe a second and third's a little rich, but I think there'll be more of a market for Hendrickson. Mac was coming off a pretty significant injury. Hendrickson's coming off a really good season. Let's say the second is the one premium asset. Maybe you're throwing in day 3 picks. Maybe you're throwing in a guy like Devon Godshaw, who you're going to trade anyway, right? If the package is highlighted by a second round pick, are you doing that? Yes, Brian. Yes, come on. Who are you drafting at 38 that's better than Trey Hendrickson?
That's what I was trying to think of real quick. Yeah.
And it is a good edge class, but he's going to come in instantly, be a difference maker. You're building your pass rush around that guy. Now, like, you get him, and then you get one of these second Chase Young, Harold Landry, one of these guys to like rush off of him. Now you're cooking.
Or Milton Williams. You have Hendrickson, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, and then Keon White and Harold Landry,
yeah.
Whatever. Like, you're cooking with gas on the defensive line right there.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd give up first, but I'd definitely be in I'd be in pretty aggressively.
Yeah, I think he is extremely good, Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he led the league in sacks this year, didn't he? Like,
That sounds right.
I think so. So he's posted like 70 plus pressures each of the last 4 years. So he is very good. He's going to be worth what he gets paid for. Someone said in the chat 17 and a half. So we'll believe that. But yeah, he is. I don't know if they'll do that, but I would definitely be interested in Trey Hendrickson. But
And look, the edge rushers are starting to play like well into their mid 30s,
yeah,
and play at a high level into their mid 30s. That's a position that kind of collectively starting to, you give Trey Hendrickson a 5-year deal, you might get 3 really high level years out of that.
definitely.
3, even 4.
So, what about going back a level to the linebackers? Will be interesting with Jelani Tavai, Juwan Bentley. What are their fits? What are their futures? They did put the right of negotiate or first right of refusal, I believe it's called, on Christian Ellis today. So he'll be back into the fold most likely, and that's more of that athletic mold that we expect them to go to. So Zach Bond, as we said, is off the market. He re-signed in Philly. He was the top guy, but any other linebackers you're kind of looking at to bring in here in free agency?
Not really. This is somewhere I think, again, strong draft class. You go there. They definitely need a different type of player. Greenlaw's coming off the injury. Don't love that. Not a ton of depth. Like Jamie and Sherwood interests me. I don't know that I'm overly excited. I'd take them. Right. There's some guys that would make sense to sign, but if they don't address it, I wouldn't freak out. Robert Spillane's another one. The one guy, if they are going to go at linebacker, and PFF has him at 31 on their board, which is way too low. Nick Bolton. If they're going to make a run on the linebacker, I've been a big Nick Bolton fan for a long time. The guy just makes plays. He's just always around the football. That's what they need. I think he has that athleticism to play in this defense. He's a little bit on the bigger side. That's the one guy. But if they don't address linebacker, like you're going to have Bentley, I'd assume you're going to address it in the draft, get a smaller, quicker linebacker to put next to him. And I think that's probably enough for now. This is one of those ones that it is maybe a little bit more of a need, but because they have so many needs, if I'm prioritizing, like you can only do so much in one off season, even with the assets they have. If this is one, they're like, all right, we'll address in the draft. And if that doesn't work, we'll take a look back at it next year. Like, yeah, I'd be okay with that. I could understand that.
Yeah, that's like, you look at Bentley and you're like, okay, he might not be the ideal fit, but like he's obviously talented, and can they afford to just throw him away kind of right now, quote unquote, right?
I also still think you can play Duggar the way
yeah,
you play a linebacker in Vrabel's system.
especially if we're getting Javon Holland, which we'll talk about. But I do like, I would like Greenlaw. Like I would take a 1-year flyer on him. He did a year removed from the Achilles. Like he was so good before that. And I know Achilles is pretty serious, but just take a 1-year flyer. Or I do like Sherwood too. That's another guy who's 25, 26 years old. He always is around the football. He seems like a Mike Vrabel type of player. He was voted team MVP with the Jets, so he looks like a good locker room guy. Like I would be down for either of those two guys in that new kind of mold, get a little bit more athletic at that second level. So I like those two guys. Seems like they do have some interest in Sherwood. I think the Herald was on that one. So maybe his market's going to be pretty big though, because the Jets want him back. Salah's in San Francisco, Ulbrich is in Atlanta, so a lot of teams probably want Sherwood. Another kind of underrated guy, and Drake May is listening on his burner right now. He brought it up. Robert Spillane, kind of an underrated linebacker. He's played a ton for Vegas the last 2 years, and he's at his best kind of coming downhill, but he's evolved a little bit. I think he had like 5 or 6 interceptions this year for Vegas. So maybe one of those lower level guys you can kind of come in. Was a captain too, so another good locker room guy. Like I wouldn't be mad at a flyer on Robert Spillane.
I'm with you. Like I like Spillane, but like if they don't add him, I don't
know.
I wouldn't. He's not going to be one where I'm like, man, I can't believe they missed on Robert Spillane. Who's a free agent? I'm just looking at this list right now. Landon Roberts. Yeah, Landon Roberts. They do need a fullback too.
There you go, Landon Roberts.
Birds.
Him back in the fold.
Yeah.
But all right. We'll wrap up with the secondary. We'll start at corner. They definitely need a corner opposite of Christian Gonzalez. There are pretty good corners on the free agent market. I know you like Carlton Davis. I'll stick with San Francisco. I love the idea of Charvarius Ward. He wants a fresh start, change of scenery after everything he went through, tragically last year, losing his daughter. But you want a guy, or I would love a guy opposite of Gonzalez with some ball skills. Like that is Charvarius Ward. Like he led the league in pass deflections in 23. He interceptions too. He was up there. Like I love the idea of Charvarius Ward, physical press man corner. Carlton Davis kind of in that same bucket. So I know he's at the top of your list.
I whether it's Davis, whether it's Ward or Rasul Douglas, like just size. No more 5'8" corners on the boundary, please. Get a bigger body to play out there. And then if Jonathan Jones doesn't come back, now you talk about, and this may be something they do in the draft, a backup slot corner to play behind Marcus Jones because of his injury history. That may make more sense in the draft. Day 3, I know there's a certain corner a lot of our viewers have in mind maybe for that role. But just size. Just size on the boundary. That's the big thing for me. Whoever, Davis is somebody I like, but if it was Ward or one of these other guys, like that'd work with me. I don't think they need a world beater. You just need somebody who's going to hold their own so that when Gonzalez is taking one target away, this guy's making it tough on the receiver on the other side.
Yep. Some names in the chat too. Byron Murphy. He's interesting because, he can play the nickel. He can play inside, outside. So if you want, a little bit more versatility, flexibility there, he's intriguing. And Paulson Adebo was having a really good year in New Orleans before he broke his femur and missed the rest of the year. So he could be, another one of those coming off injury value guys, but he's got some size and length on the boundary. I would be up for a shot at Adebo too.
He's also only 25.
Is he really? Okay. I knew he was young.
So.
I didn't know he was that young. So, yeah, good corners though. Especially, looking at a number 2 opposite of Christian Gonzalez.
He'll be 26 when camp starts, but yeah.
Okay, so still pretty young. DJ Reed was another one, but he's probably going to get paid like a number 1. You would imagine.
I'm also, again, I think they need the size.
5'9", so
right. I think good player, but I'll take the drop in maybe. You want to call it ability or whatever. I think it's just stylistic at that point when you go down to a guy like Ward or a guy like Davis. The play style matters here a little bit more, I think, and they need that size on the outside.
Yep. All right, last one. Safety. Are you chasing?
Whoa! Last one.
Oh,
you of all people, come on.
I know. I was last one on defense.
Okay, there you go.
Defense. Are you chasing the talent with Javon Holland, one of the best players on the market? Does it make the most sense for the Patriots with Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers under contract? Maybe not, but do you just want the talent in Javon Holland?
Look, they have the money to kind of pool it in one position, right? You're spending a lot of it at safety, but how much less are you spending at quarterback than most teams? And you don't know, like Duggar's coming off that injury that really changed his game last year. Peppers has got to kind of recenter himself here after a rough year last year. And I don't think they're okay playing on the back end, but I still think they're both at their best when they're playing near the line of scrimmage, but you need somebody back there to do it. I feel strongly about this. I do. And it doesn't need to be Javon Holland, but you have the most money. Sign the best player, right? Like they just need talent at a certain point. I will say though, if it is all right, do they really need Javon Holland? Do they really need to go that far? I like Cam Bynum from Minnesota as well as kind of like the second tier player in that group. I think he's maybe not a guy that's going to play as much as Holland will. He's not going to be that as much of a centerpiece, but you get in a 3rd and longs, you get in 2 minutes. He's definitely a guy you can put back there and he can track the ball and he can make plays. And Trevon Moehrig would be another one. Yeah. He's more of a tweener, but a guy that played for Josh McDaniels and you have that familiarity with. And I'd feel if it means you get to put Duggar down by the line of scrimmage again and let him just hunt the football. Yeah, he's a guy I'd put on the back end.
Yep. Another kind of lower level back end, Julian Blackman from
Yeah, it's another good
Indy.
name.
He can play kind of that deep safety role. He's just a good football player all around too. So I definitely like the idea of getting one of that rangy center fielder we've been talking about since
Yeah.
Devin McCourty retired. So whether that is you have the money to go get Javon Holland, or if it's one of those lesser names, I definitely think getting that center fielder back in there is a good add to that room.
I really want to see them fill that role this offseason. It does. I've brought up Holland because it's a fun idea and they have all this money. But whether it's Holland, whether it's Bynum, whether it's Blackman, I think it's a good year for this position in the draft. Andrew Makuba on day 2, Billy Bowman on day 3. Like, they have opportunities to get that guy. I'm not going to be crushed if they don't sign Holland. Again, it would be a fun thing to explore, but I don't think they need to do it. But if not him, somebody, please, somebody draft free agency, somebody in that role. Yeah. Like actually in that role, not a box safety that you're going to try to wedge into that role.
You're not with Taylor that Jabril Peppers is underrated in that role, which I think he is at this point a little underrated in that role, but like it's not a true rangy center fielder.
He's not as good of a player as he is when he's playing in the box.
Not where he's at his best. That's
right. And I think he's an underrated player as a whole. I want to play him where he's at his best. I want him to be doing what he does best. And that's not on the back end. Look, are you going to rotate him back there occasionally? Yeah, probably. Like I'm not saying he can't play back there, but why not get better? Right. It's you can improve 2 positions with 1 addition because you get a better free safety. And now Kyle Duggar or Jabril Peppers becomes better playing as a box safety because he's in his natural position. So, yeah, it's not my top need, right? I'm not saying they need to draft Malachi Starks 4th overall, but I think it would make them a better football team. I more than like the average move would. I think it would make them a better football team.
We'll wait for who's the Ohio State safety? I'm blanking on it.
Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs is at the top of my draft board for 2026. And I really hope they're not picking high enough that we're discussing Caleb Downs. But if I were just to give you right now,
hey, maybe he gets like Kyle Hamilton, right? For positional value.
Please. We'll see what happens at tackle. And if they sign Ronnie Stanley, all the more reason, because Caleb Downs, put him in the middle of this defense. My goodness, that guy is going to be a weapon. That guy is going to be a freaking weapon.
That would be fun. What was Hamilton, 13th or 14th overall? I believe.
Something like that. I was going through an old mock draft. I had him like 5 that year at one point.
I thought he was like the best player in the draft. He just got positional valued for down to the mid-teens.
Which you knew he was going to get knocked down a little bit, but he shouldn't have got knocked down that much.
And of course, Baltimore was sitting there to benefit from it. But if you're sitting at 13 next year, that's positive year, I would say, I guess. And then if Caleb Downs slides to you, that's even better. But
there could be a lot worse things to happen than the Patriots end up picking 13th and still have a shot to draft Caleb Downs.
Definitely.
It'd be a lot worse outcomes.
All right, let's wrap up free agency here with special teams. Kicker, they do need a kicker. Joey Sly is headed to free agency. We really haven't heard anything about him. They do have Parker Romo signed to that futures deal. I believe it was Zane Gonzalez who got re-signed today by the Commanders, so he's off the market. But we have Nick Folk out there. We have Matt Prater, who lost his job to Chad Ryland. We have Eddie Pinero, Michael Badgley. Any of those guys interest you, or what is your plan here at kicker? Are you looking at the draft? What is going on at kicker?
Folk coming back would be fun. Certainly would. I'd bring Sly back with competition. A UDFA and Romo, and maybe we have a 3 kicker battle in camp this year.
3 of them in there.
It's not. There's not a ton of kickers available. There aren't. So I think there is a case, unless you can get Folk back. I still am of the belief, I don't know if they'll still operate this way, but I think this was one of many, many, many very smart things Bill Belichick did. Get a kicker with experience kicking in inclement weather. You can't replicate that. So Folk obviously has that from being here. Sly has that from being here and some of the other places he's kicked. I don't know how many of the other guys do. Badgley's been around a little bit. He's in Detroit, but that's in a dome. I don't remember where else he's kicked. I don't believe Pinheiro does. Prater does because of age. I don't know that, he might just be done. Yeah, I would bring back a former Patriots kicker and I'll be happy. Would rather it be Folk. If it's Sly, fine. And then maybe we go get my guy Ben Sauls, but just bring back a former Patriots kicker and I'll be good there. But keep in mind, as of right now, it's Parker Romo and that's it. And I don't think they're ready to go in to camp with Parker Romo as the kicker without any competition. I think that the door's open to him maybe winning the job, but I don't think he's going to be handed it outright. So this is something to kind of keep in the back of your mind as we go through the next month and a half, free agency and draft, that they are probably going to add at least one, if not two kickers at some point.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Folk just because, he's 41. I get he's been really good in Tennessee, but
He
warm
might be
weather,
ageless.
warmer climate. Yeah,
Just
but he was
don't have him kick off. Just have Behringer kick off.
But the long kicks, he was fading. That's why we were moving off of him. He was fading at the end of the last year in New England. He was struggling down the stretch there.
Didn't we learn this year banking on 68-yard field goals maybe isn't the way to operate as a football team? There is something to be said for can't hit outside of 40, but is automatic from inside 40.
There
is something to be said for that.
Let me pull up, because you still would rather a guy who can make some. I would
rather the guy that's 90% from inside 40 than 80% from inside 40, but can hit from 60.
All right. So his last year in New England, he was 4-5, 50 plus, 10 of 14, 40 to 49. So not as bad as I thought. And then he's went on and led the league in field goal percentage the next 2 years in Tennessee there. But maybe he is just an ageless wonder. But I would have a little concern bringing him back up into the elements.
Who would you rather have then?
Yeah, that's somebody. Yeah, that's
it's not exactly. You can't be picky here, Brian.
Sly or I was just looking at. There's not many out there. Austin Seibert was with Washington last year. He made 90%. He was with the Jets. He was with Cleveland. So he has
wasn't
experience.
He a part-time? Yeah, he only played a couple games, didn't
he? He had 30 attempts last year.
Did he? Oh, okay.
That was the most of in his career. He's mostly been bouncing around, but he played 9 games and he kicked 30 attempts last year. So maybe him, but probably looking at Sly and then just Parker Romo or UDFA battling that out. But we'll see. So maybe someone will shake up on the trade market and kicker world there, but we'll see. All right. Any last thoughts? Anything we missed, or we can wrap this up?
I think that's it. They don't need a punter. We're good on punter and long snapper this year. We don't need to discuss that.
We're good. How many years do you think Joe Cardona has left in him?
I was going to say, are we doing long snappers in the draft next year? He's probably year to year at this point. I still think he has something left in the tank, but
he signed that huge extension. Remember? It was record breaking.
Wasn't that only 3 years?
It might have been. Let me see. I have it. He is under contract through 26. So yeah, next year.
Right.
Through next year. So
I'm sure they'll keep him as long as he wants to play. It makes all the sense in the world, but how much longer does he want to play?
Exactly. He's still playing at a high level, but 30, it'll be 34, 35 when his contract ends. So how much does he want to keep going? But we'll see. So we will wrap up our free agency preview there. We'll definitely be on Monday after, we're expecting things to happen when the tampering window opens. So what time we come on, we will let you guys know. I remember last year it was quiet. We were ready to jump on, and then a bunch of news broke. We had Unwinu literally 10 seconds before we went live, and then we had to jump off and go do a bunch of writing. So it's fluid. We'll be flexible, but we will let you guys know as soon as we know. So make sure Patriots CLNS on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to Patriots Press Pass on YouTube. Turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com to read his Patriots coverage on there. You can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines. And head over to patspulpit.com for our free agency coverage there as well. Thanks, everyone, for jumping in with us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you guys next week for free agency.